Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving deep into one of the most shocking and talked about events in recent naval history, an American submarine humiliating China's navy in a powerful and strategic show of force. This wasn't just a routine patrol or a random encounter at sea. It was a deliberate message, a demonstration of capability and dominance from the United States Navy that sent shockwaves through the Chinese military establishment. What unfolded in the depths of the Pacific Ocean exposed just how far ahead the U.S. remains in undersea warfare and how vulnerable China still is beneath the waves. In recent months, tensions in the South China Sea have been escalating. Chinese warships, Coast Guard vessels, and aircraft have become increasingly aggressive toward their neighbors from Taiwan to the Philippines and Vietnam. But the U.S. response was quiet, calculated, and devastatingly effective. When a Virginia-class nuclear-powered submarine surfaced unexpectedly near a major Chinese naval exercise, it was more than a coincidence. It was a message that no matter how much China expands its naval fleet, the U.S. still controls the unseen battlefield below the ocean's surface. What made this event so embarrassing for China was not only the timing but also the precision. The U.S. submarine had reportedly been tracking Chinese ships and submarines for days without detection. By the time it revealed itself, it had already mapped out every vessel, every frequency, and every tactical move the Chinese Navy made during the exercise. It was as if the Americans were watching from beneath the waves, documenting every flaw in China's naval coordination. The submarine involved, believed to be from the advanced Virginia class, represents the cutting edge of American underwater warfare. These submarines are not only incredibly silent, but also capable of launching Tomahawk cruise missiles, deploying special operations forces, and conducting deep-sea surveillance with unmatched precision. The mere presence of such a vessel near Chinese waters without detection was enough to send Beijing's military planners into panic mode. For a country that has poured billions into anti-submarine warfare systems, this incident was nothing short of humiliating. Reports suggest that when the U.S. submarine surfaced, it did so just outside China's exclusive economic zone, perfectly within international law, but close enough to send a powerful warning. Chinese radar systems and sonar networks failed to detect the approach, even though they were supposedly on high alert. By the time the submarine appeared, the Chinese vessels scrambled to reposition themselves, but it was already too late. The Americans had made their point clear. We were here the whole time and you didn't even know. Military analysts have compared this event to the Cold War cat and mouse games between the U.S. and the Soviet Union. Back then, American submarines would often slip undetected into Soviet-controlled waters, mapping out their naval routes and testing their defenses. Now, decades later, history seems to be repeating itself, but this time with China as the target. The difference is that China, despite its rapid naval expansion, still lacks the decades of submarine experience, technology, and acoustic mastery that the U.S. Navy has perfected. The psychological effect of this incident cannot be overstated. For China's naval commanders, it was a sobering reminder that size doesn't always equal strength. The Chinese Navy may have more ships numerically, but under the surface, the U.S. remains the undisputed leader. Every major military power understands that undersea warfare is the true domain of stealth and intelligence. Once you lose control of that space, your entire maritime strategy becomes vulnerable. This was also a strategic communication maneuver by Washington. Without firing a single shot or making a public statement, the U.S. managed to expose the limits of China's naval capabilities. It was a silent warning that if tensions ever escalated into conflict, the first blow would likely come from beneath the sea, fast, precise, and undetectable. The Pentagon has long emphasized that control of the undersea domain is essential for maintaining global dominance, and this incident just reinforced that doctrine. At the same time, the event drew attention from U.S. allies across the Indo-Pacific. Countries like Japan, Australia, and the Philippines saw this as reassurance that the U.S. still holds the technological edge needed to deter China's aggression. Australia's upcoming nuclear-powered submarines, being developed under the AUKUS Pact, will soon join this silent fleet, expanding the Western Alliance's ability to counter Chinese influence in the Pacific and Indian Oceans. In contrast, China's submarine fleet, while growing, still faces major limitations. Many of its submarines are noisy, outdated, and easier to track. Its newer Type 093 and 094 submarines have improved capabilities, but they still lag far behind the acoustic stealth and sensor fusion technology used in American Virginia and Seawolf-class vessels, U.S. Submarines operate with a level of silence that makes them nearly invisible, even to advanced sonar systems. This gives them an overwhelming advantage in both surveillance and combat scenarios. Chinese military media attempted to downplay the incident, calling it a routine foreign provocation. But satellite imagery and intelligence leaks told a different story. Naval activity spiked across multiple Chinese ports following the event, suggesting a state of high alert. Internal reports within the People's Liberation Army Navy indicated that several officers were reprimanded for failing to detect the submarine earlier. The embarrassment was not just military, it was political. In a system where national image and prestige are paramount, being caught off guard by a foreign vessel in your own backyard is deeply humiliating. Behind the scenes, this event also exposed how U.S. intelligence and surveillance networks work together with submarines to create a full spectrum awareness system. The submarine wasn't operating alone. It was likely supported by satellite reconnaissance, long-range P-8 Poseidon patrol aircraft, and undersea sensor networks stretching across the Pacific. This layered intelligence web makes it nearly impossible for adversaries to move undetected in key regions. The message was simple: every move you make, we already know. The U.S. Navy's undersea dominance didn't happen overnight. It's the result of decades of investment, innovation, and strategic focus. From quieting technologies to advanced sonar and artificial intelligence-driven navigation systems, American submarines are floating masterpieces of engineering. They are designed to operate autonomously for months, strike anywhere in the world, and vanish without a trace. In contrast, China's Navy is still struggling to build the infrastructure and training networks needed to sustain long-duration deployments. For China, this humiliation is particularly painful because it exposes the weakness in an area they've been trying to dominate: their own maritime backyard. Beijing has spent years militarizing artificial islands, installing missile systems, and patrolling disputed waters, but all of that means little if they can't detect what's happening below the surface. The United States has essentially reminded them that control above the waterline is meaningless without control below it. As the U.S. continues to strengthen its alliances across the Pacific, this show of force is likely to be just one of many subtle but powerful reminders to China. Whether it's through submarine patrols, joint exercises with allies, or advanced surveillance missions, Washington is making it clear that it will not allow Beijing to dominate the seas uncontested. The timing of the incident also coincided with several key geopolitical developments. China was conducting large-scale naval drills near Taiwan, and tensions were running high after a U.S. carrier strike group entered the region. The sudden appearance of the American submarine effectively shifted the narrative. Instead of Beijing showcasing power, it was Washington that stole the spotlight. Military observers noted that the U.S. didn't even need to reveal which submarine was involved. The mystery alone amplified the psychological impact. For the Chinese Navy, not knowing which vessel, where it came from, or how long it had been there was perhaps the most unsettling part. It reminded them that America's reach is global and its stealth unmatched. In the days that followed, several Asian media outlets highlighted how the incident demonstrated the importance of deterrence through capability. The U.S. doesn't have to fight to prove its dominance, it only has to be seen, or rather, barely seen at the right time and place. This kind of silent diplomacy is far more effective than words or sanctions. Analysts also believe the event will push China to accelerate its anti-submarine warfare programs. Expect to see more investment in underwater drones, sonar networks, and surveillance satellites, but even with these advancements catching up to the U.S. In undersea warfare could take decades. Submarine technology relies on acoustic signatures, material science, and decades of operational experience that can't simply be copied or mass-produced. This encounter, while non-violent, has changed the strategic atmosphere in the Pacific. It has reminded the world that the oceans are still the most unpredictable and powerful arenas of modern warfare. Control of the seafloor from undersea cables to submarine routes is the new frontier of power projection. The U.S. has made sure everyone knows it remains the master of that domain. For Washington, this was also about credibility. After years of Chinese expansion, island building, and aggressive rhetoric, the U.S. needed to reassert dominance without escalation. A single submarine surfacing at the right place did more than any press conference or military parade ever could. It restored confidence among allies and reminded adversaries of the balance of power. China's leadership, meanwhile, will likely respond with more exercises, more ships, and more propaganda. But the truth beneath the surface remains: the gap in undersea warfare is vast, and the United States just proved it again. It was not only a military message, but a psychological strike, precise, silent, and deeply humiliating. As both nations continue their rivalry across the Indo-Pacific, the battle for maritime supremacy will intensify. But as this event showed, true power doesn't always make noise. Sometimes it surfaces quietly, delivers its message, and then disappears back into the deep, leaving its rivals wondering what else lies below. And that is the brilliance of America's undersea dominance. It's not about confrontation but control, not about visibility but invisibility. The U.S. submarine didn't just humiliate China, it reminded the world that beneath the waves, the balance of power still belongs to the United States. Thank you for watching, and if you enjoyed this in-depth analysis, make sure to like, share, and subscribe for more updates on global military developments and defense technology.